Welcome to the New York State Association of School Business Officials webinar. Today's program is the New York State ASBO Monthly Planner, December edition. Your host for today is Donna Clement, Director of Professional Development with New York State ASBO. Operator assistance is available at any time during this conference by pressing #. Following the presentation, you will be invited to a live question and answer session. You may send chat questions at any time during this presentation using the chat window indicated by a speech bubble icon located to the right of the presentation. Please address chat questions to the Q&A group using the drop-down list located at the bottom of the chat window. I will now turn the call over to our host. Donna, please begin.
Thank you, Michelle, and welcome everyone and to our monthly planner series. And today we're talking about basics of developing and monitoring your school district budget. And we're pleased that we have Michael Powers, and he's a retired assistant superintendent for business from the Carthage Central School District. And Michael's had lots of experience with budgets. Many have passed, and there's a few that haven't. So we felt Michael had some good experience to share. Make sure you ask your questions using the chat function, or when we get to the audio portion, if you'd like to call it in, we'd appreciate it. But questions certainly are helpful. And Michael's prepared lots of good information for you. So, Michael, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you very much, Donna. And welcome, everyone, to this webinar on developing and monitoring your school budget. In my room today, I have Amy Morocco, who is the business official at Carthage, who replaced me. And she and I worked together for over 14 years. And also Corey Mosier, a young gentleman that has been with us a little over two and a half years. He's a senior account clerk in the district, and they're assisting me a little bit here and have been for the last 3 or 4 weeks as I tried to prepare this. Donna, who of course everyone knows is the Director of Professional Development, she has been working with me on this since late summer, early fall, and was gracious enough to send me quite a few 3 or 4 or 5 different presentations that were done last year, last fall, by other business officials, and some of them I know. In fact, one of them is Dr. Bruce Watkins. He and I have known each other for a number of years, and so some of the material I'm using, these gentlemen also gave in their presentations. The only secret that I had, or something that I had to work on, was these presentations that Donna was gracious enough to send me were about 6 hours in length, and they were done at on different sites. And so I've tried to condense it. Those of you who have been able to print out the presentation, it's over 50 pages, and I've tried to make sure in my best ability to print out the items that I thought were most important. I couldn't do all of it. And hopefully this will be helpful to you. I have been a business official for 28 years, 2 different school districts, and I've worked for 8 different superintendents in my career. And prior to that, I was in private retail business, family business for 14 years with my dad and my brother. So I brought a little bit of private business into the school business when I started, and it's been helpful, but boy, is school business different. And those of you who are sitting out there, if you've had the opportunity to work in private business, there are some similarities, but there's things that are different. As I go into my presentation, we question, just a real question is, why do we create a budget? And what is it for? And very simply, it's required by law. This was in every one of the presentations as well. The education law requires that we present a budget that must be voted on by the public, and it's the 3rd Tuesday in May. This year it'll be May 18th, 2010, statewide. When I first started in school business, we had a range of, I think, well over a month that we could vote for budgets, but now you don't. It's an expenditure plan that tells the public what you plan to spend. You're not supposed to overspend. There are cases where you could, but with certain specific things that would happen. And this presentation deals with the general fund. You folks out there who are business officials, you also deal with cafeteria budgets, federal capital budgets if you have projects going on, but this presentation will involve just the general fund. And we go into what is a budget? Well, I use some of the terminology again that the other folks use. It's a logical financial plan for the operation of the district. That's a pretty basic statement. You want to have reasonable estimates of your expenses and the same of your appropriations, and the same when you're dealing with the revenues and your financing of your budget. You're going to hear this several times over. It should involve a multi-year plan. Not everything can you do year by year, strictly 1 year only. In my 28 years, it doesn't really work out that well. Sometimes you may have to put certain things off, but it's important to know that these things are looming out there and you need a plan, and so it becomes a multi-year plan. And of course, the bottom of that particular slide and the next one deals with what a budget is not and what's a reality budget, or the budget can't be a list of very specific items only, and you're not going to spend $1 more or $1 less, and it's not a guarantee of everything is going to work out perfect, and it's not fixed and it's not unchangeable. It's work in progress, and so there is a little definition up there on this one about what a perfect budget is. Well, that's not realistic, and there really isn't a perfect budget. A reality budget is make sure that you've got enough funds appropriated without interruption, and you're generously estimating expenditures. That's a terminology that you want to budget on the conservative side to try and have a little more than maybe what you think you're going to need, and the same thing when you're dealing with your revenues. You want to perhaps estimate on a conservative side, and then in the difference is what your tax levy is going to be, and that's how that's the very basics when we start doing some of the budgets. This particular slide deals with budgets when. And Donna and I spoke several weeks ago about this, and I've got this up there, but because the budget vote is held on the third Tuesday in May, which I just mentioned, and there are some other dates that you have to be aware of about a budget hearing, and the board adopting the budget within so many days, 25 days of the vote, and legal notices. Now, the details of these items are going to be discussed at the next webinar. Another business official, Gary Valenti, is charged with doing that. I've just put these up there, even though they may be a little redundant with what he's going to be doing. He's going to be doing it in much more detail. But I've got these in here because I want to talk about a budget calendar, which is the very next slide I have up. This is, it's titled Sample Budget Development Timeframes. And this is the actual budget calendar that was used last year for the Carthage Central School District budget. And our process in this past year, it started in early December 3rd, and I guess I'm going to be going back and forth on how we build budgets, but this is a key, I think, because it sets the timetable and the time frame as to how we have done it here over the years, and perhaps I would say I've refined it. But we send out a budget memo to all of our buildings, our principals, and our various administrators, and the business official. My office, we would confer with the superintendent, and we would decide on how much would be given to the buildings for supplies and textbooks and different things like that via per pupil allotments. And so and that memo would tell every building and every administrator what their allotment would be. It also includes a list of schedules time frames for them to review their needs and get back to the business office. They would review their needs for perhaps staffing, if you've got some changes in enrollment, class sizes. Those requests would not only go to the business office, but in our district it goes to the assistant superintendent for curriculum. And also we send out information that to gather information on any equipment needs and things that a building might assess. They have to fill out these forms and then prioritize in their own minds how important it is. Of course, in most cases, it's always number one. But we get all this information. That's why we send it out in early December, and it comes back into our offices usually late December and during the month of January. And then I've always tried to meet with the individual building principal or the administrator, whether it was the technology director, interscholastic athletics, the music and art director, so that we have an opportunity to see what they want and have it all determined, and then we begin the process of our office and those administrators as far as assigning costs to them. In this past January, we had what we call it an organization meeting, and that is because we have a budget committee, and the organization meeting is set up to give the ground rules, and I'm going to talk a little bit in a minute about our budget committee. And then you can see that's 5, 6 items listed there is what we cover in our budgets. And this may not be for everybody, but we have always found that I've always started with the non-instructional budget, that being the operation and maintenance budget and the transportation budget. The two gentlemen that are in charge of those areas would meet with the superintendent and with the business official and discuss their needs. The buildings would have already met with the facilities gentlemen and talk about if there's anything unique or anything that they need. We would assess where we are with do we have problems with the roof at one of our elementary buildings? Do we have problems with our boilers? Are there things that we need to budget for that's just normal, regular maintenance? Or are we going to be, we've got an 18-year-old roof, so we start, it's not worth repairing, it's getting too expensive. Maybe we'll have to go for a capital project and things like that. They're thoroughly discussed and reviewed. And in our district, we have a maintenance committee, which has 2 or 3 board members on it, and we have a transportation committee made up with 2 or 3 board members that are on it. And so the board is involved with those items right on the ground floor, so they have a good feel, those members do, when they can communicate back to the rest of the board. The next meeting that we have deals with what we've always titled as fixed cost. Part of that is because debt service is a fixed cost. I mean, you've got your debt service schedules, you know what your bond, principal, and interest payments are. You're locked into those legally. Some of the other items, they're fixed in a sense because, like Social Security, is 0.0765 times all your salaries. And your retirement costs, we're all going to be dealing with that. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. The ERS and the TRS retirements, they are a function of your payroll numbers. And then, of course, health insurance and workers' comp. The Carthage District, we belong to the Jefferson Lewis BOCES, and we are self-insured for those 2 items. And we normally, we meet quarterly, and at our January quarterly meeting, the rates for health insurance and workers' comp are usually established. And so, again, with that kind of information somewhat available, we will have the meeting in early February, putting out our fixed cost estimates. Now, they can be changed because obviously staffing could change and something else could happen during the process. A little later on in February, we usually do the board will adopt the propositions. This is early, but we do it for our any buses that we're going to be purchasing. And then we have 2 libraries in this district, one in the village of Black River and one in the village of Carthage. And their board of directors will send a communication to our board asking for funds to be put on a proposition to vote for the budget for their during our budget meetings. And then as I go down the rest of the schedule, we will have one meeting directly involved with special education in BOCES, because that's such a complicated and very important area. And then as we get into March, we will then do our instructional budget, because by then we will have our arms around what our enrollments are, what our class sizes are, what our programs should be, could be. And of course, there's things, some of you sitting out there maybe, and we were on this list, but we're off of it now. But if you're a school in need of improvement, there are certain instructional things that you need to do in order to get off that list. And that just gives the staff and the administrators and the principals time to have their meetings with the assistant superintendent for curriculum. We get the results of those, and our business office then would cost out those things as to what they were going to run. And then I'm not going to go over the rest of it, because it's, again, some of those things will be covered at great length in the budget, the webinar coming up in December. Budget 2, we've already sort of discussed a little bit about that, and technically all staff are involved with the budget. It affects them, but obviously the higher the levels of administration, as I said to you, that I got a director of music and art, we got building principals, we have an interscholastic athletic director, the people in those positions, technology director, they are responsible for their budget, and it's up to them to bring all that information to my office, our business office, and we deal with it. And we have always here kept the superintendent informed. He doesn't necessarily have to be at every single business meeting that the business office has, but he or she would be completely apprised of all that is transpiring, so that there are no surprises. And of course, the assistant superintendent for curriculum would be with us on all of that as well. The Board of Education, they need to be apprised of where you are with building your budget, and of course, ultimately, the public. Now, I'm going to talk about for a second here, or a few minutes, a budget committee. And again, when I started a few minutes ago with that budget schedule and the time frame, in the late 80s, go back that far, we lost a budget and a budget defeat. We voted on it twice, and back then I believe we used to call it an austerity budget. Now you call it a contingent budget. And the superintendent and the Board of Education, when we lost that budget defeat twice, we decided to set up a budget committee, and the board and the whole board basically sat in on this budget committee. We might have had 50, 60 people that came to our meetings, and it was for want of a better word, when we first set it up, it was a little rough around the edges, but the superintendent knew what he wanted to do and where he wanted to go. We wanted to get some understanding out there with our public, and so that the information we wanted accurate information to come out. That's the main thing. And as we got meeting with these folks, we had 3 or 4 basic budget meetings, and we asked them, the superintendent asked them, that if you want to be on this committee, I expect you to be at all of the meetings so that you hear everything. We did okay, because the following year the budget did pass. And then over the years, we've always had this budget committee, and then I've had some excellent experience with some businessmen in the community that wanted to be on it. We had people that were very active in the PTO organization, very interested in their schools. We had, I think at one point for several years, I had a pastor of one of the local churches, and he had children in the school, and it was very good, and it was very helpful. And the most recent committee that we've set up, we have 3 members from the Board of Education, as this slide says, and one of the board members is the chairman of the committee. Obviously, the superintendent, assistant superintendent for curriculum, and the business official, and 8 to 10 community members. Now, that's an ideal number. I said earlier that we might have had a meeting with 50 or 60 people. The more you've got, the harder it is to work with a big number. But and it's this past year, the committee went through some very, very deliberate budget meetings, and they had questions and concerns because we lost the budget a year ago. And this committee with some of the very local people that served on it, and I think once they heard all of the information and heard it correctly, then they get back to their friends in the community, and you just have a better connection, is what I'm going to say, with the community when that happens. And then the committee will make a recommendation to the full board as to what they see the budget should be, or what should be or what should not be in it. But the Board of Education is the one that makes the final decision. And then, of course, various things that should be considered. As I said earlier, I think it's a multi-year task with the budget. It's not just 1 year at a time. So you really need to look at the long-term financial health of your district. Hopefully I'll have a chance to talk about raising or lowering the fund balance. That's a very important part of a school district's budget as far as being able to maintain a proper level for your tax levy. You've got concerns and challenges involving with your employee contracts, the benefits. Amy and I were just talking about an hour ago about the new rates estimated for the TRS retirement. ERS is going up. You have the SWDs, which is students with disabilities. If you have students that go out of the district for tuition, and things that are you just have to be aware of. And these are things that you're going to, as you build your budget, these are challenges that come with it. And of course, above all, as strong as all of this is student performance and academic success. You don't want to be on one of those state education lists, and which we were, and we're off, but we're working at it. Enrollment changes. Now, a lot of people in New York State aren't worried about enrollment changes. In fact, if anything, a lot of the areas here, if anything, they've gone down a little or they're flat. Just to say a few things about our area, we're in Jefferson County, Carthage Central School District. 50% of our student body is directly affiliated with Fort Drum. And Fort Drum is the home of the 10th Mountain Division, the heaviest deployed division of Army in the country, and they are constantly being deployed to Afghanistan and Iraq. 4 or 5 years ago, the base was voted on to be. They went through the process of called BRAC, which is Base Realignment Committee, and our base stayed open, and it's gotten bigger. We've had an increase in the number of soldiers here, families, and civilians that come along to support them. I'd say 4 to 5 years ago, our enrollment was about 2,970 students, and as of last week, there was over 3,550 students. They've built new homes, new housing for the soldiers on the base, and we are getting more kids, and with that comes the need for more teachers. And so I may have a situation, the Carthage may have a situation here, that a lot of you sitting out there today listening to me don't have that concern. We do. Indian River School District is also even affected greater than we are. They're on the other side of the base. I'd say 60-70% of their students are Fort Drum related. And to a certain extent, so is Watertown City Schools. There are people living in the city of Watertown who are affiliated with Drum, and their enrollments are changing. Towards the bottom of this slide here is two things I've got talking about the challenge is estimating your federal stimulus funds for your effect on your budget next year, and also, and I wish we had more information on this, but boy, this is a very, very difficult topic now, is the freezing of state aid. When I first made this presentation up, it was talking about freezing of state aid. Now we're talking about decreasing state aid due to the financial situation of New York State government and they're meeting, I think, as we speak. At least I hope they are. Last I knew, they were still talking. Having said that, with these challenges, some of this might be redundant. You know, what's a successful budget process? You know, you got to look at the long-term perspective. You've got to have connections with your organizational goals and educational priorities. I'm not going to read these one by one here, but you know, what's driving this is educating the students, and you constantly evaluating the effectiveness and of the services and the programs and your resources. And at the very bottom, this is a good quote, and I've heard it many times, and so probably many of you out there have as well. Remember, it's about the children, teaching and the learning. Next slide here deals with types of operating budgets. This was in every single one of the presentations that Donna sent me, and I think over time, you know, as a business official, you know, I've read these budgets and what they mean, and zero-based budget and program budgets, and I guess to a certain extent, I'm going to say that what I've done here is kind of a line item budget. That's how we've really built our budgets over the years that I've been here and the people before me. To a certain extent, we may all do program budgets. Like 4 or 5 years ago, we put in a new literacy program in the district to help us get off one of these lists. And, you know, there was in-service involved and purchase of books and materials and training of teachers. Well, there was a program budget that I guess I would say that there were expenditures for. I'm not so sure we had dedicated revenues for them. I think it just came out of the regular tax levy. And then the next slide is just real quick. This was on every single presentation that I've ever been to, I think, the equilateral triangle, where it shows the expenses and educational plan on the bottom and the corners, and then the revenues up on top. So then I'm going to get into this. I've got a 10 or 12 or more pages here on budget components, and this one I've really wrestled with because I don't want to spend a great deal of time on them, yet it's important because one of the hardest things I think, and I said to Donna about this webinar, is I'm not really knowing who my audience is. If there's seasoned business officials out there that know all about the uniform system of account codes and the various sections of the budget, this is maybe boring to you. But if for those who are fairly new at it, these are things that you need to be aware of, and you need to see what's in these 5 sections of a general fund budget, because you want to make sure that you're getting information on these 5 sections and putting them in adding them up and putting them in your budget. That's about the only way I can say it. And I also found that every single one of the presentations that was given to me to look at had this in quite a bit of detail. Basically, these 5 sections, you're supposed to follow the uniform system of account codes. And all your budget presentations should include these sections. I guess there are those out there that want to do it their own way. That's fine, but in the end, you have to report on the ST3 and the various reports for the State Education Department and the Comptroller's Office. You've got to have these things done this way, and why not do it right at the start? And I'm just going to kind of sort of scoot through them. Under general support by the various functions, the Board of Education, Chief School Administrator, that's obviously the superintendent of the school in his office. Finance, that would be the business office. fact, and then there's staffing and central services and special items. So we go to the next slide. Again, I'm kind of rushing through it, but there's breakdowns of what you should be if you're brand new at it. You should be looking at under the Board of Ed. What I would code under there would be perhaps travel for various conferences or things they would go to. We budget our district clerk there. The clerk is appointed annually by the Board of Education and is paid a stipend to do that. The district meeting happens to be where I budget for the amount of money for the budget vote and the election people. Central administration is the chief school officer, the superintendent's office, and his clerical people. Finance, I mean that's our office, and you've got under business administration all of the costs, the secretaries, the clericals, accounts payable, all the people that work for you there, payroll, auditing is budgeted there. Our tax collector is paid out of that area. As you can see. Then there's an area, another function for staff, legal. You occasionally, we have to hire attorneys at different times. Of course, over the last year or so, we've had quite a thing about attorneys with the New York State Attorney General and the Comptroller. We pay ours by the hour when we need them. Personnel, we have a human resource officer or human resource department, and that would be budgeted there. You get down to central services. Again, I'm rushing through it because maybe most of you know this, but that's where you have the cost for your operation and maintenance of your plant. That's where the cost of your natural gas, your electricity, roof repair, all your custodians, the supplies they need, and all put there. Also under there, if you happen to have central mailing and printing and data processing. Continuing, more general support, they call special items. I guess for want of a better term, it's got a little bit of everything there. I'll make comments, like unallocated insurance. We bid our insurance about every 3 to 4 years. So when the insurance bid comes in and we get our bills, the amount of the insurance that's applicable to my bus garage and my buses, I charge over against transportation because that becomes aidable. The rest of it is general insurance to insure your buildings. We also have student accident insurance that our board's always paid for. That would be put under unallocated insurance. Maybe most of you know it, but I just had to say that. School association dues, your board belongs to the New York State School Boards Association or local ones. Those would be charged there. Might make a comment down on refund on real property taxes. That's another thing that for those sitting out there that are fairly new at it, maybe you don't even know what that is. But we all get, over a period of time, challenges on our assessments. And when you get a challenge from a large business, corporation, and they go to court, and perhaps you have, like say for instance, right now I know that this district has several large ones that are being heard in the courts. Well, the tax bill's already gone out and has been paid. So if they, when the judge comes back and awards one way or the other, if they award in favor of the property owner, we're going to have to refund taxes. We always budget a little. I think I put in $15,000, $20,000 a year to take care of the little things. But every once in a while, you got one that might be much, much bigger. And that's something that you need to be, as a business official, you should be notified of those things that are happening. They have to, usually that would go to the district clerk. It's just something that you really need to be aware of. And I think, and it depends. This is the time, like a number of years ago, up in this area of the state, we used to have an awful lot of plants dealing with paper mills, and a lot of them most all of them have closed. And the properties, they're no longer making paper, and so they've gotten, I mean, they're worth something, but not anywhere near what they used to be, and so that's something that can happen. I don't mean to belabor it, but those are things to be aware of in building a budget. And then, of course, the last two would deal with the BOCES administrative costs. You'll get that from your BOCES every year, or any capital expense that you're responsible for. Going into, next is the section for Section 2, it's called Instruction and of course, that is the instruction is what we're all here for, and that represents, in most districts, should represent 65%, 70% of your budget. All of the programs and teachers and expense that goes along with education. And then I've got a breakdown of those areas on the next slide, where we deal with like administrative and your comments here. Yeah. Okay. Excuse me. Thank you. As you're building your budget, you can see, like, under administration and improvement, I'm on that slide, where you've got 4 or 5 different bullets there for curriculum development, supervision, research and planning, in-service training. Then you go down to teaching regular school. The state now asks us to code half-day kindergarten through 3rd grade in one code, grades 4, 6, and 7, 12 in another. These are things, as you build your budget, this is the guideline. This is what you should be, if you're brand new at it, and these are how you should ask for these, and be sure you've got these numbers, and separate it out that way, because lots of times there are reports and things that you have to file, and let's have them set up that way right from the start, and it'll make things easier for you. Some of the things that are also underneath there is like substitute teacher salaries. That's something that, if it's anything like it is in northern New York, everybody up around here has trouble getting substitute teachers. There's a shortage of them. We've all had to, over the last several years, raise our per diem, try and get more people to substitute. I think that's one code that over the years I've been here, I've consistently been under budgeted, some years worse than others, because you don't always know when someone's going to be off sick, they're on leave, and you're paying a long-term substitute. That's something that you have to really take a look at and make sure that you're adequately budgeted for. And of course, at the very bottom is BOCES services. That's when you do your BOCES budget, you get all of those items through your budget meetings as you discuss things with your special ed department and OCAD department. Next, we go to programs with disabilities. Now, this one is something that I guess as I was going through this budget presentation in preparation for it, some of the things that have happened to me in my district here, dealing with special ed, is something that you have to, I want to say that it's very important that the business official and the director or the supervisor in charge of special ed have a close working relationship, so that when students are expected to come in that have a disability or require a program that's a little out of the ordinary, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but you need to know about it, because number one, if the child has to go to a school that's not in our district, there's a tuition involved. If the child goes to a BOCES run program, well, we have cost per student from BOCES, and if the BOCES run program is not in our building, we may have to and it's in the Watertown schools or over at Indian River or one of the other buildings, another school district, we have to put a bus run on. And then with the bus run, perhaps there would be the driver with a bus aid, depending upon the disability of the child. So it affects more than just one budget. So it's very important that if your administrator knows these things, a new student that's going to be of school age next year has a particular program that we have to budget for, it's good to know about it ahead of time. But I want to tell you a couple of things that have happened to us that over the years, I'd say 4 or 5 years ago, meeting with the special ed administrator, I remember her telling me that we have a family whose child will now be school age, is going to go to Rome School of the Deaf, which is like 55 miles from here. Okay, good. We budgeted that, and luckily, BOCES, our local BOCES, provides transportation for several other school districts in the BOCES that have children going to Rome. So we were able to tie in with that. Well, school opened, and two other families moved in that also had children attending the Rome School of the Deaf. Well, the transportation wasn't a big problem because I already had BOCES doing it, but we did not have the tuition budgeted for these other two students. So that was, I had to jump around and find the resources there. You have to do it. I'm not complaining. That's what we did. But about 2 months into the school year, another family moved in, and there's a young child that's going to the Batavia School for the Blind. And I had to go out and bid a contract transportation with a private busing company to bus that child to Batavia. And these are just things that can happen. And there is no right way or wrong way of budgeting, except that I would try and build something in some of those tuition codes where it says tuition paid to others. And when we do transportation budget, maybe budget a little in your contract transportation, just in case this may happen to you. It's ironic, a little bit later on the same year with the Batavia School of the Blind, that I got a call from Watertown City Schools. They had a child move in that also was going to go to the school. So that year I was able to split the cost of the contract transportation with the Watertown City Schools. And they didn't have it budgeted either, but at least it was something that we were able to work together on. And these are things as you are building a budget. If anything, I'm just trying to cover these for instances that can happen to you. Going on in the next slide, we've got more detail dealing with. Pupil services, that's, you've got attendance and guidance in your health services. Again, I'm just, for those of you who know all about this, I apologize, but for those that you need to be aware that you're going to have to get budget figures for these areas in your school district and add them all in. Then we go to, let's see, the next one. Okay, now this one is transportation. It's all by itself. Section 3. We have a transportation department of about 103 or 4 people work there. By the time your supervisors, your drivers, mechanics, bus aides, and clerical people. We have 78 buses, and this past year we did 999,000 miles. So when we do our budget for transportation, we have to estimate obviously the miles, what we think our fuel costs are going to be. We belong to a BOCES cooperative bidding for diesel fuel. We've had kind of a wild ride over the last several years on that. Some years we've had plenty, and then other years we're a little short. And I think probably all of you might be able to out there speak a little bit to that. The garage building, we have the budget for the heat, the lights, the insurance, upkeep of that. Again, meeting with, we have a transportation committee meeting with the board on if the supervisor brings forth, and this was why it's another thing talking about multi-year. We had a couple of our bus lifts that were in need of repair, rather expensive, and so we tried to do one a year for a couple of years, and budgeted it that way. We had as our enrollments increased, we've had to increase the number of buses that we have, and we have a simple thing that I never thought of, but the supervisor did. He said, Mike, if we're going to be buying or keeping more of our buses, I got to have a place to park them. And so we had a building project that maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but with our enrollment that I mentioned a few minutes ago going up so much, the board got a building project passed where we added a classroom space to our district to accommodate these new students that came in from Fort Drum. And with that, we had some extra money that I was able to make the parking lot larger over at the bus garage and accommodate these extra buses. But that took planning. It isn't something, that's why the budget is not a year-by-year thing. It's something that was brought forward to us by the supervisor. Hey, have you thought about this? And so the business official needs to be on top of these things and keep in communication with your superintendent and the board on that. Underneath there, you see the contract transportation that I spoke to a minute ago. The contract transportation is where I charged the private bus company to go to Batavia. And we don't have public transportation here. I know some schools do. And then there's the transportation from BOCES that I would use to when we were busing students. They were busing our students for us to the Rome School or the DEF. This last one is Section 4, Community Services. It's something that we really don't do much with. Again, maybe there's some of you sitting out there that this is an activity that you do, and those things go there. Then I guess I got into undistributed expenditures. I always found this kind of curious when I first got into the school business. I didn't know what undistributed expenditures were. And of course now, having been at it for so long, it's the employee benefits and your debt service and then interfund transfers. The employee benefits is a large portion of anybody's budget. They're a function of the payrolls, and even they call them undistributed. In one sense, when you're all done, you wind up allocating parts to your to your teaching codes, to your transportation issues, different things like that. And debt service is, you pretty much know long-term debt. You get debt service schedules from your financial people. Short-term debt, that might be interesting based on what's happening. Those of us who have building projects, sometimes we borrow a little ahead of time on bond anticipation notes. Your financial advisor will give your business office, the amount to budget for principal and interest. And your tax anticipation notes and revenue anticipation notes, we may find ourselves, more schools out there having to do that if there's a problem with our state aid coming up in the very near future. We have over the years budgeted money for revenue anticipation note interest, and when we've had to borrow for cash flow shortages. And that's something that when I first put this together, I didn't think it was that big a deal, but the more I've been listening to what's been going on in Albany, it may become something important you all should be thinking about. And then we go into the next, this thing I'm just going to, again, this is all about the uniform system of account codes. I apologize if this is boring to you. It was on all of the other presentations. One of the first things I learned about fund accounting when I got to schools was fund, function, object, location. A is the general fund. The function could be I've got a sample in there. 2110 is instruction, and 200 is equipment. There's a list of all the basic codes. Again, most of you out there probably already know about it, but these are the things that you should, how you should formulate your budget expenditure codes under. And there's just a sample that I got, real basic, 2110, 200 HS, 229. That's the general fund. The 2110 is our instruction. 200 is a piece of equipment at our high school building, and 229 is our science department, and they were microscopes. That's how we do it here. And then I guess having spent all that time, about the uniform system account codes, et cetera, now you want to talk about your expenditure presentation and your information. Some districts, maybe their boards or their public or their superintendents want everything line by line and detailed. Others maybe just a summary. You use your ST3 codes to pick up some summary items, summary ideas. In the end, it's important, obviously, the business official, you folks out there, you need to know the details in order to be absolutely sure that your estimated budget expenditures are accurate and adequate. And all of those slides that we just covered in the last 5 or 10 minutes, dealing with all that breakdown, again, maybe I'm just telling you things you already know, but it's important that all of those categories, if they affect your district, you better get yourself the budget figures and expenses for it. Then I've got some thoughts on personnel expenditures. I'm going to kind of squeeze through this. I have always found that first of all, you've got to be accurate. You've got to know. So like the year you're in right now, be absolutely sure that you've got everybody accounted for, and make sure that you have enough money budgeted to take care of all of your salaries and all of your hourly people this year. Everybody that can be should be encumbered, and you look at your sheets to make sure that there's no shortages. And then I've always tried to have our staff take all the hourly people, and somebody's working 162 days or 182 days, 6 hours a day. Multiply that out. Just pretend they're here the entire year. They never miss a day, and you don't require subs or whatever, and there's no overtime. And then make sure you've got enough money covered in those salaries to take care of that. Then you would budget things for overtime and subs in another area. Because to have that information be as solid as you can, because you're going to be building next year's budget on that foundation. And if you've got a weak foundation, your expenditures for the next year are going to be weak or soft as well. And I go back and look at past years. I don't know how far back you want to go, a year or two. Look for anything that may look funny. That, like, why was I short here? Why did I have a lot of extra money left over here? Maybe I budgeted too much money one year because I didn't budget it that way necessarily, but maybe we had 2 or 3 long-term people retire, and then the replacements, there was breakage on the salary. Things like that. It just helps to know all that. Then we get done with fringe benefits. As I said earlier, the fringe benefits are spin-offs. They're directly a result of multiplying a percentage times your salaries. Again, Social Security. Once you estimate your salaries, your Social Security is 0.0765 times that gross number, and that's what you should have budgeted. And go back and look in history as to where you stand on those as well. And the retirement systems. And not everybody has, one of the things listed is disability insurance, life insurance. Not everybody has that, but most of those items we do have. And then this also was mentioned in one of the other presentations. I'll just quickly say this, that if you are in a position where you're negotiating contracts right now for next year, or going to be, you have to try and be, if it's going to be an issue, if you're going to budget, if you're negotiating a contract for 2.5%, but you go ahead and put 3 or 3.5% in your payroll codes, just be sure that you do it in such a way that it can't be, seen. I don't know how else to say that, but just, that's something you might want to talk with your labor negotiator about and your superintendent, that, you don't want to be negotiating with one of your unions and say that, well, we only can afford 2.5%, and yet they say, well, how come you put 3.5% in the budget? Don't know necessarily the answer to that, just be aware. Then I go into, now you're dealing with budgets, allocations involving supplies, equipment, repairs, textbooks. Again, we try and take care of that by using our budget memo and with all of the forms that go out to the various administrators with the time frames for them to get back to us, and they come in and meet with the business official and with the assistant superintendent of curriculum, if appropriate, and that's all of those are put in, tallied up, priced out, and that's how you build that. BOCES services, we have a special board meeting, I think I said it right at the beginning, where we will discuss all of our special ed services that we use BOCES for, and then our occupational education, how many students will we be sending to the Jeff Lewis BOCES in the morning and the afternoon for that. And we also use BOCES services for, they do bus driver training for us, we use their labor relations office. Those are all priced out in the BOCES COSER, and that is pretty straightforward. The hardest thing to figure is your special ed. And I want to say this, I've taken everybody that we know is going to be in the district next year and cost them out for if they're in a BOCES program. And then we've always tried to add some people or some students into those BOCES COSERs just in case, because you don't always know. And the bigger the district you are, or the more movement you have in your district, and again, in our particular case, with our increased enrollment and things that are happening here, sometimes we guess correctly and sometimes we don't. The other things, the contractual obligations, your utilities, you've got ways of determining what they are from. We belong to BOCES cooperative bidding for some of that. What your copy machines are, your contracts, vendor contracts, different things. And again, the way I've tried to lay this out, I've already talked about some of these things, but this is titled Obtaining and Organizing Information for the Other Budget Areas. Well, this really relates a lot to my budget memo that goes out to the buildings, and that our supplies, textbooks are allocated on a per pupil basis. The equipment requests come in from the buildings as to what they want. The operation and maintenance, again, if there's something unique or unusual there, the director of facilities will tell us. We try and plan and be on top of things. And we try and get a lot of this information by early February so that the business office can spend time cross-checking costs and different things, and then organizing it for the budget meeting. Transportation budget, I've talked a little bit about that already. There are 2 years ago, our mileage was like 825,000, and then it went to 900,000 or 925,000, and this past year that we just finished is 999,000. That's because of our enrollments increased, our bus runs have increased, and we've got more buses on the road. This I want to get into just for a few minutes because I hope this might be helpful to some of you. I'll share it with you. About 10, 12 years ago, my transportation supervisor came to me and the superintendent and said, I'd like to buy enough buses so that we would be on a replacement schedule, that our buses are 5 or 6 years old, maybe 7, instead of having buses 10, 11, 12 years old. And we are a highly aidable district. When we're all done with all our deductions, our state aid for transportation comes out to about 85%. We've always bought our buses we bonded for 5 years. That ties in with the state aid reimbursement. And over the last 8 to 10 years, we've had two, I believe at least two, maybe three, mechanics that have been with us a long, long time, retired. Well, we were getting into a newer fleet, and they didn't all retire the same year, but we didn't replace them as these two or three gentlemen retired because our fleet was newer. A lot of the repair work, major repair work, if they're 5 years older or less, were done under warranty, and the Bluebird people took care of that. And because they were newer, didn't have as many miles on them, we didn't have as many breakdowns. So here we are at that point in time, and in May of '08, I'm sharing with you a rather interesting number. We had 1,487 people vote no on our bus proposition, and 603 voted yes. We also lost the budget even larger than that. But what it did is we talked a lot about this. Well, we're going to get off our replacement schedule if we wait another year. So the board and superintendent decided, okay, let's go out in December, and we went out with another bus proposition. I believe there was 12 that we bought. And I sat down with a couple of the real vocal negative people just to show them what I was trying to do, because he thought I was maybe a little arrogant after being defeated like that to the board, was to bring this forward. And we showed them, like, here's the bond principal and interest, here's the 85% state aid, and here's what we will get on trade-in value for these 6- and 7-year-old buses. The 7-year-old bus cost us about $240. The 6-year-old bus amounted that we were $3,000 ahead. Now, the only reason that we're able to do this is because of our high aid ratio, and of course you're buying the buses on state contract. And the gentleman just said to me, Mike, this makes sense. I agree with you, and I'm going to vote for it. And I asked him to go out and get his colleagues to do the same. Well, we won 237 to 230, but we won. And then in this past May, Amy did the same thing with explaining the bus purchases, and we had no problem. So if you're in a high aid ratio, or even if you're not as high as us and you get money back, take a look at that. It may help you. It did us, and so I thought I'd share that. Getting on to comments regarding estimates, some of these things, I think the way I'm doing this, some of them I've already probably referred to. It's not an exact science. It's not really guesswork budgeting either. You're using historical information, and you work from some of your experiences. Some things you can predict with accuracy, and such as your debt service, and others you can't. I throw this out too, like how cold will the winter be? With our utility costs. We're noted for cold weather up here. How much snow are we going to have for plowing? That's usually two things that we can always count on in northern New York. But I've seen winters where we really haven't had much of any snow plowing until the end of January, early February. But these are things that you have to kind of think about as you are putting your budget together. That's why I say it's not an exact science. I've already talked about here the negotiated pay raises, changes in enrollments, the vendor contracts with coffee machines. You got elevator service, got energy management contracts, things like that. And then, but then again, if you're constantly looking at these things. The other considerations that I thought of that quickly say is that you want to allocate enough for a bad year. Things happen that you just can't anticipate. Like I said, with the tuitions, with the Rome School of the Deaf and the School for the Blind in Batavia, I didn't have it budgeted. I had some money in a couple other codes that I transferred in. If we have to put on extra bus runs, I usually try and add a couple of extra drivers when we do our budget presentations, because things can happen. And it's not easy, but you have to work on it this way. Revenues. Trying to wheel through these two. State aid, of course, our district is aided to the tune of about high 60s, low 70%. And because of Fort Drum, we get a considerable amount of federal aid. That's part of our budget, and the STAR was also listed in all these other presentations, and in the parentheses, usually it's not part of your presentation, and it isn't. I just left it there just in case. You better be familiar with what it is, just so in case you get asked at a meeting about it. Interest earnings used to be a big thing. It isn't anymore because of the interest rates. Some districts get sales tax, city districts do. I know Watertown does. You've got Medicaid reimbursements, miscellaneous revenue, a variety of things, and then your levy, and then your appropriated balance. The state aid impact, this statement was made in every single one of the presentations, along with the very next one that shows the state aid impact. It's the very same example used by 3 or 4 different presenters. It's a very simple, straightforward $10 million budget, and look what happens when the budget went up, but the state aid didn't increase as much. A wealthy district, it affected their taxes 14%, but the poorer district, it affected their taxes 50%, and that's what a district like Carthage might fall into, because we are so highly aidable, and I'm sure that there are people sitting out there listening to this afternoon that also is the case. And then this is another slide that was on all of our, almost every single one of the presentations that were given to me. And it really says it all. I mean, on the right-hand side, you got the mandates, the curriculum standards, special education mandates, No Child Left Behind, Contract for Excellence. Left-hand side, you've got the laws, negotiated contracts, pensions costs, health insurances costs, and the pressure on the expenses. And there's your state aid at the bottom, and then up above is your tax increase. It really says it. Quickly on this, property tax nomenclature, most of you already probably know it, but for somebody new out there, all you really are doing when you pass your budget or present your budget is you're saying what the tax levy is going to be. You don't know what your tax rate is. You have no control over that. That's based on the assessments, and it's based on another equalization rates, and those assessments are provided by your local assessor. Equalization rates are supplied by the state, and you have no control over the assessments or those rates. And I've had occasions where we're in 2 counties, 7 towns, and 4 to 5 years ago they started revals, and one particular town was very aggressive, and property went up anywhere from 25 to 45%, and the equalization rates didn't help much. And this one particular year, we did not raise our tax levy at all, but boy, did we have phone calls from people that were in that town that had their assessment raised, and they wanted to know what we were doing with all the extra money. And the assessor was not much help by saying, call the school district. They're the ones that levied the taxes. Just be aware. I worked my way through it, especially since we didn't have a tax levy increase that year. It was difficult, and I think probably out there, sitting there today, there's probably some of you that have had the same situation. And that's nomenclature. It's just there for your information. Fund balance discussion. As we're getting close here to the end. Your fund balance is something that you should keep a good eye on. We use it to try and manage our tax levy, and you are allowed to have an unappropriated fund balance. I think in one slide there we talk about 4% of your next year's budget is allowed, and if it's more than that, your auditor will say something to you. We had that happen to us a little bit because of we were saving some fund balance to help with the increased students population coming in as a result of Fort Drum. The comptroller was here several years ago, and he saw that we had a little excess. We showed him what we were doing and what our plans were. He made a slight comment about it, but that we were doing what we were using it and to keep the taxes as reasonable as possible. And our own CPA auditor said the same thing. Now, if you have higher fund balance, there's ways of helping to control it. There's a list of different things there. Also, we can get into reserves, because I want to get into budget monitoring too here. You can reserve funds if you have some excess money. In there, it's obviously it's legal, and it's I would discuss it with your auditor, your superintendent, and your board, and SED can help you in some of this. And for instance, one thing that we just did with our reserves is that we put some aside for this tax certiorari case, and if once the case is settled, hopefully we have enough in it. If we don't, okay, then it's got to come out of the general fund. But if we have enough in it and there's some left, then that can go back into the general fund, and it'll help for another thing. Monitoring your budget. What we do here, and we've done it for years, every single month, the board gets an appropriations report so they can see where we stand on the expenditure side of the budget. They get the treasurer's report, which is where we stand on our revenues. They'll get a cash flow report, so to see where we are. The case there's been years we've had to borrow money on a revenue note because our expenses got ahead of our cash flow. Transfers, we do transfers when codes get overspent. We have the ability here of a limit of $5,000 the superintendent and the business official can sign off. But a couple of years ago, based on our own auditor as well as the comptroller like this, that we send everything to the board, even the one for $50 or $150 a transfer, so they see everything that's going on. And you want to monitor, you want to check and see. On the next slide, we talk about what to look for. The budget codes that have been. Okay. What to look for, and like if you see where your codes are overspent, all of a sudden one of your salary codes are overspent. Well, what happened? Did someone get hired that you hadn't budgeted? Or again, communication is the key. I will tell you one thing that I do remember too, as we were looking at encumbrances several years ago, and I was looking at projecting fund balance. Amy and I were talking about mine. We have money left in the health insurance code, and we knew we were going to have some left, but it just seemed to be a little bit high. And as we went through month by month and kept looking at it, and it was probably late winter, so we got thinking, let's do a little checking. Well, long and short of it was, when we encumbered our health insurance code, for some reason, we only got 11 months encumbered. So there was 1 month that wasn't assessed, and so we still had a fund balance in health insurance, but it wasn't anywhere near what we thought it was, and that was important. If you're going to say, I'm going to spend X number of dollars on health insurance and the rates are going up 5%, I would just multiply that times 5%, and that would be my new budget. Well, we would have had a soft figure there to be multiplying, and so it was looking at that encumbrance sheet and checking and rechecking, and it just is the more you do this, I guess I'm going to say to you, the more you'll recognize things. And that something just doesn't sit right. Just have to pay attention a little bit. And you should encumber everything you possibly can. All salaries, all your utilities, any known contract, all the tuitions, everything that you have an amount for, you should encumber. And so there's no surprises. Then I've got transfers. Again, that's because you can't budget everything correctly. The years that we under budgeted for fuel oil, diesel fuel, I had to make some transfers. The big ones. The year of tuition for Rome and Batavia, I had to take it from other codes. And but you share that with the board and you tell them what happened. And things happen that you weren't aware of. And there are certain restrictions under a contingent budget, and that about transferring and things, and I believe that would be covered by Mr. Valenti in the next presentation, where he's going to cover all those other things. The other things we've got here is summary of the budget development process. I guess I want to say is that maybe read some of these, but it's an ongoing process throughout the year, and be familiar with what's happened in the past, the actual results, and use some of your information in order to help you building your new budget. Involve all the staff and administration that you need to help with gathering accurate information. And the budgeting does reflect your community. So if if you've got a budget committee, listen to them and listen to their thoughts and their perceptions. And it may give you an idea as to how you should present the budget. And again, Mr. Valenti might really have some things to address there. But we've been doing things a particular way for so long that sometimes, what's the expression? You can't see the forest through the trees. And maybe there's other ways of presenting and talking about things that we haven't thought of. The other thing here, I guess I've got keep your board and superintendent informed. They don't like surprises. During the tough times that are coming up with state aid, you're going to be challenged to control your tax levy and your fund balance. If you have some excess fund balance, take a look at some of those reserves that you may be able to legally keep it, and I don't want to use the word rainy day fund. I know that's being used a lot with the state, but it's just a way of helping the future out. And we had a public meeting a year or two ago where there were, actually it was a public meeting where our voters were very, very vocal and voted the budget down. But during the meeting, there probably were 200, 300 people in. A lady got up and asked me a question about our fund balance, and I believe at that time we used $2.5 million to be appropriated against the tax levy. And I was asked the question, well, how much do you have? And I think at that time I had over $5 million, $5.5 million. Well, and the public says, gee, if you used all of that, then we wouldn't have to raise taxes at all. And it's a difficult thing to get the public to understand. Yes, we could have done it, but I just said, yeah, but next year the taxes will go just out of sight, and it's all part of managing your your resources. And I'm not so sure that this particular person agreed with me or even understood or wanted to understand. But as we went through the budget process with the committee and explained all those things, the committee understood them, and we weren't hiding money or we weren't holding things back. It was just being part of prudent management. And you have to, as you build your budget and get into this delicate task of tax levies and things, especially coming down now. I wish I knew more about where we stand on our state aid. In this morning's paper, it stated that the Senate was not in favor of cutting school aid, but the state's going to have to make up a tremendous deficit, and I don't see how schools can go through this without being affected somehow. One thing I will say that, as I thought about this over the last 3 or 4 days, is that the public will be aware of it because of all of the publicity that's gone on about the state budget. But we're going to have to be very careful how we do things and how we manage ourselves. Might be some tough decisions ahead. I use these websites. They're great resources. Of course, ASBO has always been a great resource, but the SED website and the Real Property Tax Service is a good website for information as well. I don't know if we've had any questions. I'm trying to read. I've gone on. Have you got anything, Donna, from phone?
No, we haven't had any questions, but if anyone would like to phone in a question, Michelle, if you could remind our participants on how they can do that.
Would love to, Donna. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who would like to ask an audio question, please press the number 7 followed by the pound key on your telephone now, and you'll be placed in a queue in the order received. Again, 7 pound to ask an audio question. Just wait for your name to be announced and be prepared to ask your question.
Thank you. Mike, you were a business official when state aid was cut.
Yes.
Any? Can you share some of the nightmares?
I hate to say it was so long ago. I think it was Mario Cuomo was governor.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember getting some notifications in the middle of the year. We had some difficulty with balancing our budget, and I'd have to go back and look, but I think the following year I want to say we might have had some layoffs, but I think what we did is we put through one of the crisis times we put through a retirement incentive for our teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1 year we had 15 or 16 long-time teachers, or over a period of 2 years, maybe upwards of 20 teachers retired. And of course, that the breakage in the salary helped, and it helped with not having to lay people off. That's how we got out of one of our crises.
Mm-hmm. We do have an audio question here.
Okay. Our first question comes from Mike Ivanov.
Hello.
Hi.
I've heard that the voting date is going to be changed from May 19th to, I believe, May 12th, or to the second Tuesday.
I had not.
Yeah.
I had not heard that, Mike, and that doesn't mean you're not right. I really don't know.
I was at the SED Advisory Committee meeting with, I guess, Chuck Saperla said that is a strong possibility. That was on Friday. I just was wondering if there was any other information regarding that, because some of us have gone to our boards with detailed schedules and, cutoff dates and a lot of other things, and that could definitely impact it, even though it's only a week.
So,
right. Yeah.
Well, thank you, because that would be something that maybe Donna Asbo and you folks could research, because we were on the websites just before this started, and there wasn't anything that Amy and I could find.
Yeah. So, Mike, you were with SED on Friday, so
yes,
that
I guess I wasn't sure what if the governor has to sign something or who approves it, but I know that that was a comment that was made by Chuck. So,
So we certainly will need to be on the lookout for that, and you will get a reminder from ASBO as soon as that news breaks, and it is definite. Thank you for bringing it up.
Was there a reason given as to why to just change it by a week?
Yes. Chuck had said that that's a Jewish holiday, and 3 districts have already put in to change the date. And I guess by law you can't make it, the third Wednesday. You have to make it the Tuesday before. And I think he was under the impression that if the state, whoever makes that decision, I'm not sure who makes that final decision, if they change it for 3, they might change it for the entire state.
Okay, has nothing to do with the current crises then.
Nothing to do with any fiscal crisis or anything like that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. So we have a few minutes left. Mike, do you have any other closing remarks?
Well, I was going to trying to think of some other things to comment on. Would be we did a little research. Amy helped me with this. For people who are starting in their budget process, our ERS contributions for the civil service retirement is going up considerably for the 10-11 budget. Tier 1 is currently at 9.3%. It's going to 15.3%. Probably a lot of people know this. 8.7 is Tier 2, is going to 14.9. And then Tiers 3 and 4 are currently at 7.1. They'll be going to 11.4. Those collectively are over a 60% increase in your retirement costs for the civil service employees. Our TRS that's a strange thing. That's going from 6.1 to 7 point. No, 7 point. No, this one's strange. This one's going from 7.76 to 6.1. Yeah, it's going down.
In 9.10 is 6.9, but for 11.12 it's going to be 8.5 to 9.
Yeah, and in the 11.12 for the 11.12 budget year, it's going from the 6s. It's going up to between 8.5 and 9, and those represent significant percentage increase. And sometimes we don't think about that. Well, it's 15%. Well, it's 15%. And it was 9. That actually is a 61 or 64% increase in your total budget, and those are big things to be looking at. And I don't know in our case here in our BOCES, our health insurance is, because we're self-funded, we're a little better shape than others, but those are other issues that building budgets that the business official has got to be concerned about, as well as boards and superintendents.
Right, certainly an awful lot of information that the business official and business office needs to be aware of. Yes. Thank you, Mike, for all of your information, and for Trudy and Amy and helping out in the background there. We appreciate that. Thank you for joining us today. And as Mike said, we'll continue with this budget information and talking about the budget vote on December 14, and Gary Valenti is going to be our presenter. And also want to remind you that Support Services online course is beginning on December 1st, and the first webinar of that course is going to be on December 9, and we're going to talk about the financial leadership that's needed in dealing with support services. So thank you all for attending, and hope to see you either at a ASBO event or online again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Donna, and thank you to our speaker, Michael. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's New York State ASBO webinar. Have a great day.
The moderator has ended the conference. Goodbye. Thank you for calling.